right? So other sources are mercury chloride or sublimate or corrosive sublimate of mercury, which is white crystalline powder, or it can be used as a germicide. It is used as a germicide. And fatal doses of different mercury compounds, mercury chloride, mercury cyanide, and mercury nitrate. These are three these trivalent mercuries, right? So it can their fatal dose is less, and mercurous chloride, that is 1.5 to 2 grams of mercurous chloride is poisonous, and fatal period 3 to 5 days. Actually, if in all these metallic poisons, the chances of acute poisoning is rare when compared to the chronic poison. But coming to the signs and symptoms of acute poisoning, so they combine with sulfidyl groups and interfere with cellular metabolism. And at high concentrations, vapor inhalation produces acute necrotizing bronchitis, pneumonitis, leading to death of the person. And coming to the first phase of management of the first phase of acute poisoning by mercury. So it actually comes immediately after swallowing, and the symptoms start with slight metallic taste and feeling of constriction of throat, because it is an irritant poison, right? So it will cause this constriction of throat and burning sensation in the mouth. That actually can lead to nausea and vomiting. And if the vomiting is present, it will be mixed with mucus and blood, and gastrointestinal ulcerations and perforation, because it is an irritant poison, right? So all these symptoms are common: irritation of the GIT causing ulceration or perforation, leading to hemorrhage, and actually if there is perforation, so there will be excessive bleeding, shock, and all those signs and symptoms of shock will be shock and circulatory collapse will be present. Profuse purging in cases where there is no upper GI signs of inflammation or severe signs of upper GI inflammation, then there is a chance for lower GI inflammation signs, that is purging, bloody and bloody diarrhea with tenesmus, right? And finally, when somebody either they have upper GI or lower GI infection or symptoms, they will have these signs of collapse, shock because of the excessive vomitings or excessive diarrhea. The person will be in shock, collapse, syncope, and convulsions. Finally, general insensibility may precede death of the person. In the second phase, if the person survives for 2 to 3 days, what happens? There will be salivation, excessive swelling, and inflamed gums will be present with foul smell, and loosening of the teeth and ulcerative glossitis will be present. So, if the person survives the initial stage, that is 1 to 2 days after this acute poisoning, then the person actually will go into the second stage, where there will be some inflammatory signs in the gums will be present along with halitosis. And urine contains albumin and blood because of the uremia, because of the renal involvement. There will be uremia leading to urinary albumin and urinary blood in the hematuria will be present. And due to re-excretion of the excretion of the mercury into the GIT, that is actually what happens. It was absorbed from the upper GIT, that is stomach, and entered on upper stomach and the upper part of the small intestine, and entered into circulation, right? And due to re-excretion, that is from blood, so the blood supply in the cecum and large intestine will actually re-excrete this mercury into the large intestine, that is cecum and large intestine, and that actually can produce corrosion and erosion in the large intestine. Okay, so actually what happened? So in the initial stages, there is upper GI inflammation and absorption of the metal from the stomach, right? And after getting absorbed, because of the circulation to the large intestines, it will actually re-excreted into the GIT, and that actually will produce ulcerations in the cecum and large intestines. Fatal dose sublimate is 1 to 2 grams, that I already told you. Fatal period 3 to 5 days. Delayed death actually may be due to the uremia, that is renal failure. Treatment in acute poisoning, so like any other poisoning, stomach wash. Okay, stomach wash is one of the best treatments that actually you can start with in any case of poisoning, except those corrosive poisons. And 100 ml of should be retained. So this sodium formaldehyde sulfoxylate. So that solution is the solution that is used to do the gastric lavage. And after each gastric lavage, 100 ml will be retained, and as a residue, so that it will actually form the mercury perchloride, which is actually less soluble, and it will be excreted, right? And egg albumin act as a demulcent, and activated charcoal acts as an adsorbent, and magnesium sulfate acts as a purgative, right? So it actually increases the excretion through the feces, right? And coming to the inhalation of mercury, when somebody gets fumes of mercury is inhaled, what happens? There will be inflammation in the lungs, right? So to reduce that, you have to use steroids. Steroids are the potent anti-inflammatory drugs, right? So to reduce the inflammation, you are going to use IV hydrocortisone, right? And the other chelating agents can be used in acute poisoning. So DMSA and DMPS are now most commonly used. Dimercaprol, propane sulfonate, and dimercaprol. Both are used in inorganic mercury poisoning. And British anti-leucine and penicillamine can also be used when you don't have the dimercaprol propane. Right? And postmortem changes: mouth, throat, stomach appear grayish and soft with corrosion and hemorrhagic areas, and the alimentary tract will be inflamed and corroded. Cecum and large intestine may show inflammation, ulceration, and even gangrene. Kidneys will show the toxic nephritis. So nephritic changes will be seen under the microscope, and liver and heart actually will show fatty degeneration. Right? And coming to the chronic poisoning by mercury, that is known as hydrargyrism, where it actually will involve most of the systems. Okay, most of the systems in the body will be involved in case of chronic poisoning by mercury. So even though it is an irritant poison, it is classified under inorganic metallic irritant poison. So it actually will have systemic symptoms when absorbed. Okay, when somebody chronically exposed, that is most commonly the manufacturers of thermometers, mirrors, fingerprint detection work. So those people will actually chronically get exposed, right? And they will actually accidentally get poisoned. So the signs and symptoms include excessive salivation and metallic taste, loosening of the teeth with painful inflamed gums that we have seen in acute poisoning second stage, right? And blue back line, so like as in lead line. Okay, lead line was there, no? So similar line can be seen even in mercury also. Membranous glomerulonephritis, where actually kidney is the primary target, where in case of chronic poisoning. So if it occurs in a woman who is pregnant, the abortion can also occur. And mercurial lentis is actually is the discoloration of the capsule of the lens seen in case of persons who are chronically exposed during the early phases of chronic exposure. Okay, during the early phase of chronic exposure, that discoloration, so that transparency of the lens will be lost, and there will be discoloration of the lens will be present, and which actually you can see by using the split lens, right? And but visual acuity will be normal. Okay, so the vision is normal, but there will be discoloration of the lens will be present. Okay, which you can examine during the examination. You can find that out. And acrodynia is nothing otherwise known as pink disease, which is usually from dermal exposure of the person to mercury, where there will be maculopapular rash along with the swollen, painful extremities, peripheral neuropathy, hypertension, and renal tubular dysfunction will be present. And the breakdown of mucosal barriers leads to increased absorption and distribution to the kidneys. Okay, leading to proximal tubular necrosis and anuria. And nervous system symptoms include tremors. So this is one of the important signs of chronic mercury poisoning. They are known as Danbury tremors. Danbury tremors, where the tremors are coarse and intentional tremors interspersed with jerky movements, and initially only involves the hands. So if it only involves the hand, they are called as Danbury tremors. Okay, if it is present only in the hands, we call them Danbury tremors. And when it actually get all the limbs can actually get involved, including tongue and okay, can also get involved. That actually called as Hatter's shakes. Why Hatter's shakes? Because this is common in persons who are working in hat industry. Okay, those make hats. Okay, so that is why it's called as Hatter's shakes or glass blower shakes. So because mercury is used to make glasses, okay, mirrors, right? So those people who are working in glass industry also will get exposed to mercury, and they also will actually get these symptoms on chronic exposure. So as the disease progresses, actually the most severe form of tremors called concussive mercurialis also can be seen in very rarely, but it can be seen if the disease progresses. Okay, which means no activity is possible. So the person will actually shake. So continuously shake. He actually cannot control his hands. Okay, shaking of that hands is intentional coarse tremors. Okay, they are coarse tremors which actually will be progressive. Next, erythism. These are the psychological symptoms of chronic mercury poisoning, where the person will actually have a disturbance in personality, increased anxiety, depression, shyness, or timid. Okay, the person will be extensively timid. Okay, irritable, loss of memory will be present, delusions, hallucinations, and insomnia will actually be present in the progressive stages of erythism, that is known as Mad Hatter. Okay, so as I told you, hat. So they are this is common in persons who are working in hat industry, because okay, these delusions, hallucinations will make them mad, right? So that's why they are Mad Hatter. Coming to treatment in chronic poisoning, removal from exposure. So that is the most important part in any chronic poisoning. So if somebody is working in a place where he got poisoned, you remove him from their particular source. And other symptomatic treatment depending upon the symptoms that I have told. So that those symptomatic treatment will be given. And this chelation therapy may not have much role in case of chronic poisoning. Right? And coming to the postmortem findings in chronic poisoning, the body will be emaciated, and due to renal re-excretion, large intestines actually may show ulcerative changes, and kidneys actually show pale and swollen and edematous cortex, and with necrosis of the renal tubules, and tubular nephritis, fatty disintegration of the liver and cardiac muscles will be present. Bones, teeth, hair, and nails will be preserved. Medical legal importance: poisoning occurred due to accidental consumption of mercury as folk medicine or industrial exposure, dental amalgam or food poisoning. That is the most common type of chronic poisoning. Okay, that is due to the accidental consumption, right? And also food. Okay, if somebody is eating those fish contaminated with organic mercury, they also will get the signs and symptoms of chronic poisoning. And okay, homicidal and accidental poisoning is rare, and it can be used as an irritant, okay, to produce abortion. Next is copper. Okay, the common name is tamba. Actually, it is metallic form is non-poisonous, similar to mercury, and salts are poisonous. So the important salts include copper sulfate, copper subacetate, and copper acetate, and copper arsenic. So most commonly copper sulfate or blue vitriol is blue in color. So this blue in color, and copper subacetate, that is known as verdigris. It is bluish green mass or powder. And it's actually a nutritionally essential element, one of the nutritionally essential element along with zinc. Okay, along with zinc, it is also one of the important nutritionally essential element, right? Okay, and intoxications are actually rare because we need it. Actually, it's an essential element. Means body needs this for normal functioning of the body, but in excessive doses, actually it can cause toxicity. And mainly actually from the copper fungicides is the source of poisoning in humans, and in blood it is actually transported through albumin and celluloplasmin. Okay, so you know Wilson's disease, which is actually due to excessive copper storage because of okay, that is actually different mechanism, celluloplasmin deficiency, but normally it is transported, and if it is consumed in excessive doses, it causes poison. And it will be stored normally stored in liver and bone marrow. So when you take nutritionally some form of copper, it will be stored in the liver and bone marrow. In cases where there is a okay Wilson's disease, so there will be excessive storage and lead to fat liver. All those liver changes will be present, right? And excretion will be in the bile. And mechanism of action. So actually, you know, all these enzymes are all these metallic poisons will have affinity towards the enzymes because of those sulfhydryl radicals that are present in the metal. So they will have the interaction with cellular enzymes, right? So here also it will actually act on the hematotrophic. It is a hematotrophic poison which inhibits the enzymes involved in hematopoiesis. Powerful inhibitor of enzymes. Okay, catalyzes the production of very active radicals. Okay, free radicals. We call them free radicals. Right? They actually will damage the different organs. leading because of the oxidative stress caused by these free radicals. Signs and symptoms of acute poisoning starts within 15 to 30 minutes of consumption. Corrosive effect on the GIT. So because it's an irritant poison in high concentrations, it will have corrosive effects. So leading to hemorrhagic gastritis and enteritis. And vomited matter may be blue or green depending upon the material that is consumed. Copper sulfate blue, right? Where degrees green. So depending upon the color of the poison consumed, that color will be present in the vomitus. Stools are liquid brown and not bloody. And brown stools are due to altered blood. Okay, altered blood. Next, cold perspirations indicate circulatory collapse and convulsions, coma may precede death in case of acute poisoning. And hepatotoxicity, nephrotoxicity will be maybe present if the person survives for more than 2 to 3 days. And normal fatal dose of fatty copper sulfate or subacetate is 30 grams. Fatal period is 12 to 24 hours. If the person survives more than the acute phase, the person actually may die within 7 days due to the renal failure. Coming to the treatment of acute poisoning, stomach wash with potassium ferrocyanide, actually which will convert the copper into cupric ferrocyanide, and albumin forms albuminate of copper. The emulsions are used to reduce the inflammatory changes on the gastric mucosa, and antidote is specifically actually penicillamine is a specific antidote for copper poisoning, which is a chelating agents, right? All the other chelating agents can also be used if penicillamine is not available. You can use DMPS, okay, or BAL, British anti-levisate. Postmortem findings: greenish blue froth over the nostrils and mouth, bluish green discoloration of the bluish or greenish discoloration of the gastric mucosa and its contents. So as you can see, okay, so this is green. So that is verdigris, right? And the liver may be soft and fatty. Mucosa is congested, inflamed, and eroded because of the irritant nature of these poisons. And in case of chronic poisonings, that is when somebody is chronically exposed to vapors of copper, so there may be apathy, tremors, or icterus, that is, okay, jaundice may be present. Wilson's disease or bronchodiabetes may be present, okay, like in a normal disease, it is also can be present. Chalcosis is nothing but deposition of this copper in the different tissues of the body, okay, especially the liver and bones, it will be deposited. And postmortem findings: parenchymatous injury to the liver, kidney, and heart may be present in case of chronic poisoning by copper. Medical legal importance: sometimes it is actually used in suicide, but very rarely used in homicide. And accidental poisoning is also is the most common source of poisoning in case of copper. And copper will be actually added to give that green color. So to look more greener, vegetables will look more greener. What they will do, they will coat with verdigris. Okay, so that actually is poisonous, right? And vegetable acids with improperly tinned copper vessels. So copper vessels are used to store food, right? So it's not common in our country, but in Western countries they use more stored food, right? So that actually will, if the vegetable food that is stored inside contains acids, so what happens? That copper will leach into the food. That actually can lead to accidental poisoning. And antidote in, okay, copper sulfate is actually an antidote in phosphorus poisoning. Okay, so that you actually can learn in next class. Okay, phosphorus poisoning, actually copper sulfate is used as an antidote. So you know, it is the dose that decides whether something acts as a poison or a remedy, right? So in case of phosphorus poisoning, copper sulfate is an antidote. Next metallic poison is thallium. So it's it actually, why it's important is it has most characteristics of an ideal homicidal poison. Okay, that's why it's one of the examples of ideal homicidal poison, but it's not easily available. Okay, so there are few characteristics which correlate with thallium poison. Okay, coming to the thallium, it is actually metal and its compounds are both are toxic. Okay, so I told you copper and mercury are not metallic forms, are not poisons, right? Here in case of thallium, even the metal is also poisonous. Used for making low melting point special glass for highly reflective glasses. Okay, so it's also used in glass industry. Okay, body absorbs thallium very effectively and especially through the skin, lungs, and digestive tract. And inhibition of the respiratory enzymes and oxidative phosphorylation in the glycolysis cycle, okay, that is Krebs cycle, will be inhibited by this thallium. So I told you All these metals have this affinity towards the cellular enzymes, right? Interference with porphyrin and collagen metabolism. So that actually will affect the, okay, those systems. Okay, most commonly it will affect the hematopoietic system and the collagen metabolism. So collagen is everywhere, right? So throughout the body we have collagen. So in the bones, muscles, okay, tendons, ligaments, everything has collagen, right? So because it inhibits collagen metabolism, so there will be excessive body pains, all those things will be present. Fatal dose 1 gram and fatty period is equal to 36 hours. So stomach ache, colic. So actually this colic is very important, like in lead. Lead also there is lead colic, right? So that is in chronic poison, but here in acute poison. Diarrhea, nervous system damage may be present, nervous pain, joint pains. So I told you, collagen involvement leading to all these pains in the joints and the nerves, and peripheral neuropathies will be present. Alopecia and red skin will be present. Often consequences such as paralysis and behavioral changes may be present, and death due to respiratory paralysis. Okay, so because of the involvement of these muscles and all these things, there will be death in acute poison. Postmortem findings: gastroenteritis with liver and kidney damage may be present. Brittle proximal end of the hair. So apart from these findings, there will be inflammatory signs will be present in the GIT. So I'm not talking about all those signs, okay, because all the signs are common in that. Apart from that, there will be, okay, our liver and kidney damage will be commonly seen in acute poisoning with thallium, and it actually resists putrefaction and heat. So the person who poisoned by or killed by thallium, the body will actually will not decompose normally. Okay, it will decomposition is delayed. Okay, even it can be the poison can be detected from the ashes of the cremated body. Ideal for homicidal poison was used in Europe and Australia as an rodenticide. So it was easily available, but in India it's not easily available. And chronic poisoning occurs in workers who are working in, okay, luminous paints, glass, dye. Okay, so there are so many other industries where thallium is being used. Next poison is iron. Okay, next poison is iron. Actually, what is this you are talking? What are you talking? You may be thinking, right? So iron actually is also one of the very important essential element that is required by humans, right, for the normal functioning, right? But as Paracelsus told, what did he told? So only the dose will decide whether that thing acts as a poison or a remedy, right? So similarly, iron, which is a very essential element in a human's life, can also become a poisonous substance when taken in large quantities. Okay, so normally iron sulfate, that is ferrous sulfate or ferric chloride. So these are the two most commonly available forms of iron. Okay, that will be exposed by humans that can lead to poisoning. So copper sulfate, copper sulfate or iron sulfate or ferrous sulfate is otherwise known as green vitriol. So remember this green vitriol because actually it will cause, it is green in color and it is in crystalline form. Okay, it will actually give that greenish coloration in case of acute poisoning by high doses of iron. Ferric chloride, perchlorate of iron, it is a water soluble and also irritant to GI. And mechanism of action in concentrated forms, it acts as a corrosive. So in very highly concentrated form, like any other irritant poison, it acts as a corrosive, and in low concentrated form, it acts as an irritant poison. It increases the capillary permeability similar to arsenic poisoning, and after absorption, when serum iron levels exceeds the body's binding capacity, total iron binding capacity, TIBC, right? So that the amount of iron that is present in the serum exceeds the TIBC of that particular person, what happens? The remaining iron will actually remain as an elemental iron in the body. That actually will cause the production of free radicals. Okay, free radicals that actually cause damage to the body. It inhibits mitochondrial functions and also causes hepatic damage, hypoglycemia, hypothermia. And signs and symptoms of metallic poisoning include, okay, this iron poisoning include metallic taste, vomiting and diarrhea, abdominal pain, shock, hepatic failure, hypovolemia, hypertension. So all these are common in irritant poisons, right? So these are common. Apart from that, there is free radical damage to the tissues leading to multi-organ failure. So that is the reason for the multi-organ failure. Okay, because of the free radical damage. Okay, they will actually lead to hepatic failure and also other organ failures. And convulsions and coma may precede death of the person due to acute poisoning. And coming to the management of acute poisoning by iron, gastric lavage with normal saline, activated charcoal to as an adsorbent, whole bowl irrigation, right? Or you can use a purgative to actually sodium sulfate to actually act as a purgative. Right? And kerosene therapy, so the specific antidote for iron poisoning is desferrexamine. Okay, for copper penicillin, right? So this is desferrexamine is the specific antidote for management of acute poisoning by iron. Actually, it can be also be used in chronic poisoning, but most commonly we use in acute poisoning by iron. The specific antidote is desferrexamine. Okay, coming to the autopsy findings, hemorrhagic necrosis or corrosion of GAT when somebody ingests poison, and ferrous sulfate will give that greenish discoloration to the mucosa. When you actually open the stomach, you can see that during the autopsy. And hepatic and renal necrosis may be present, which can be seen during microscopic examination by pathologists. And jaundice means yellowish staining on the skin, and all those other parts will be present. And pyloric stenosis in case of acute poisoning by iron may be present. And coming to the medical legal importance, most commonly it occurs by accident. Okay, accident poisoning is common, and suicidal and homicidal poisoning is there. And it also be used to produce abortion. Okay, so it's because it is an irritant. So apply on the cervix, it can produce irritation and expulsion of the fetus. Next final one is zinc. Zinc phosphide, actually, which is one of the rodenticides, that is rat poisons that are commonly available. So 5 grams of zinc phosphide can be lethal. So zinc, okay. So I told you copper, zinc, iron. So these are all actually commonly essential elements, right? So essential elements for humans, right? But in excessive quantities, in different chemical forms, actually it can cause poison. So copper sulfate, zinc phosphide 5 grams, zinc sulfate 10 to 20 grams, and zinc chloride 5 grams is the fatal dose of zinc. Signs and symptoms: metallic taste, salivation and vomiting, substernal or abdominal pain, okay, because it's an irritant poison, right? So it will cause inflammation and irritation in the GI, and diarrhea may be present, convulsions and shock. So if somebody has excessive diarrhea, what happens? Or excessive vomiting. So there will be hypovolemia and shock, right? And you can see all the signs of shock will be present. And if somebody inhales the fumes of metal, that is especially the zinc, what happens? Metal fume fever will be present. So I'll tell you what is that. And it will be present not only with zinc, okay? It can be with any of the metals that we have discussed till now. Okay, arsenic can produce metal fume fever. Okay, metal fume fever, zinc, copper, thallium. So all those metals can also produce, but this, okay, zinc has more potential to produce metal fume fever. And pneumonitis, okay, so somebody inhales, inflammation in the lungs, okay, bronchi leading to pneumonitis. And acute pancreatitis with raised serum amylase levels may be present, hepatic damage, and finally renal failure due to the shock may be present. Coming to the treatment, so like with any other poisoning, gastric lavage, chelation with ethylene diamine tetraestate, and supportive treatment. So if somebody is suffering with shock, you give, okay, sodium chloride, ringer lactate, dextrose. So all those signs and symptoms, depending upon the signs and symptoms that the person is experiencing, we are going to treat accordingly and give the supportive treatment. And autopsy findings: acute hemorrhagic gastritis or esophagitis may be present. Okay, so inflammation of the gastric mucosa or the esophageal mucosa will be present, right? Pancreatitis, that is congestion and edema of the pancreas will be present. Liver necrosis of the liver, acute tubular necrosis of the kidneys will be present, and pulmonary edema. In case of inhaled poisons, there will be excessive pulmonary edema will be present during the autopsy. And coming to the medical legal importance of zinc poisoning, accidental poisoning is the most common form of poisoning, and suicide and homicide poisoning is very rare. And metal fume fever, actually it is nothing but a flu-like symptom. So somebody will experience like a influenza-like symptoms like fever, which actually starts within 4 to 6 hours after exposure to these fumes, okay, metallic fumes, okay. I told you it is not only specific to zinc, that it can be present in copper, it can be present in okay, other metallic poisons, okay, thallium. So all these metallic poisons can also produce mercury. All these poisons can produce metal fume fever, but it is common in zinc, right? And coming to the other signs of metal fume fever, is started by fever, chills, myalgia, and cough. So which is common, right? Common in case of flu. So these are symptoms are common. Apart from that, dyspnea, fatigue, metallic taste in the mouth, salivation, and sweating will be present, along with the cyanosis of the limbs will be present. So that is the medical legal importance of zinc poison. So that you can see this metal fume fever is not specific to this poison, right? Okay, thank you. So in the next class, I'm going to start. Maybe Dr. Raj will tell. So non-metallic poisons after the exam, right? So this week we are not keeping any exam in forensic medicine, so that you can prepare well for the exam. Okay. So all the best for your exam in the next week, right? And we'll meet after 1 week, right?